Let me go back to the PowerPoint presentation. I want to go to this clip here of Dr. David Imhotep, and I showed this in class. This is from, I think this is about 2011. Dr. David Imhotep was on he was interviewed by WKRP in Cincinnati. Okay. So we deal with, a lot of you have seen the interviews I've done over the past few years with Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans Documented Evidence, and his follow-up book, The First Americans Were Africans Revised and Expanded. We know he became an ancestor in late 2023. But his book deals with 713 footnotes. Is backed up by 7 peer-reviewed articles. And on page 14 of his book, he talks about how evidence of an African presence 51,700 years ago in a campsite in Allendale County, South Carolina, was discovered by Dr. Albert Goodyear, who's an archaeologist at the University of South Carolina. They found 13 different types of evidence that thoroughly document an African presence in the land we call the United States of America, going back at least 51,700 years ago. So they found artifacts, architecture, campsites, carvings, Egyptian writings, footprints in lava, genetic M174D haploid groups dealing with DNA and genetics, linguistics, paintings, skulls, skeletons, structures, and tools. They found 13 different types of evidence thoroughly documented in African presence. This right here is a picture of Dr. Albert Goodyear. This is an article that came out 20 years ago, November 18th, 2004, from ScienceDaily.com, ScienceDaily.com. The name of this article is New Evidence Puts Man in North America 50,000 years ago, okay? And an excerpt of the article from ScienceDaily.com, and this is a scientific website. They have all types of archaeological discoveries, scientific discoveries, things of this nature. An excerpt from the article says, radiocarbon tests of carbonized plant remains where artifacts were unearthed last May along the Savannah River in Allendale County by University of South Carolina archaeologist Dr. Albert Goodyear indicate that the sediments containing these artifacts are at least 50,000 years old, okay? Indicate that the sediments containing these artifacts are at least 50,000 years old, meaning that humans inhabited North America long before the last ice age. So these humans were the short-statured Africans known as the Khoisan. Okay, the short-statured Africans known as the Khoisan that come from Southern Africa. An October 2012 genetic study published in Science magazine found that the Khoisan in Southern Africa are the oldest ethnic group of modern humans, with their ancestral line originating about 100,000 years ago. The Khoisan, formerly called by the derogatory term Bushmen, are genetically unique, and no other currently known population had separated so early from our common modern human ancestor, according to the report. So this is an article from Science magazine. Now here are 2 Khoisan sisters. These are the short-statured Africans. The Khoisan live mainly in Southern Africa, in territory spanning Botswana, Namibia, Angola, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. They are largely divided into 2 groups, hunters and gatherers, known as the Sans people, or Sans people, and keepers of livestock, known as the Khoi people. Okay, Sarah J. Bartman, was Khoisan, okay, also known as Hottentot Venus, and you know she was sexually exploited in England in the 19th century. The Khoisan languages include the distinctive click sounds that are not found in the languages of their neighbors. Okay. there's an article from AtlantaBlackStar.com called 5 Ethnic Groups That Prove the First Humans Were Black. And it talks about the Khoisan. Okay, now here is the Dr. David Imhotep on being interviewed on WKRP in Cincinnati, Channel 5. For those that remember the TV show with Venus Flytrap and Lonnie Anderson from the late 1970s, early 1980s, about the radio station WKRP in Cincinnati, there really is a WKRP in Cincinnati. I don't know if there's a radio station, but there is a TV station. Let's go to this clip.
Wow, and we should say, we have a picture of the book too. It's The First Americans Were Africans, and we were talking about Dr. Ivan Van Sertima because I remember back in the 1980s, my dad took me to hear him. He came here to Cincinnati, and his book was They Came Before Columbus, and he talked about how Africans were here. He had a lot of, great research information, and so it was just kind of eye-opening. But we haven't heard a lot about that recently. So tell us how you got involved here.
I'm showing that Africans not only came before Columbus, they came.
Wow, and we should say, we have a picture of the book too. It's The First Americans Were Africans, and we were talking about Dr. Ivan Van Sertima because I remember back in the 1980s, my dad took me to hear him. He came here to Cincinnati, and his book was They Came Before Columbus, and he talked about how Africans were here. He had a lot of, great research information, and so it was just kind of eye-opening. But we haven't heard a lot about that recently. So tell us how you got involved here.
I'm showing that Africans not only came before Columbus, they came before the Indians.
So you're going even farther back.
I'm going farther back, at least 56,000 years old.
Okay, now we've got a graphic up here about 130,000 years ago.
Yeah, well, they sailed over here. And when I lecture, people say, well, wait a minute, humans weren't sailing, let alone they weren't boating 130,000 years ago. And I beg to differ. Last year, New York Times quoted the BBC, and they wrote an article on how in Crete they have found a stone industry of stone tools dating back to at least 130,000 years. And Crete has been an island in the middle of the Mediterranean for 5 million years. So they had to sail, and it was a continuous civilization, which means they were going back and forth. They knew how to navigate. So if they got to Crete 130,000 years ago, it's easy 70,000 years later that they could make it to the Americas at 56,000 years ago.
Right. That's really, now how did you even get back to this research? This is just, did you start by reading They Came Before Columbus, and then you expanded on that research?
Yes. You see, 36 years ago, Dr. Van Sertima's book came out, and this information is piled on for 36 years. So many different things, so many cutting-edge articles and things have been found since then.
Yeah, and what's the reaction you get when you talk about how Africans came here even before Native Americans?
People are amazed. They're shocked. They're shocked. First come shocks, and then they're smiling, and some frown, of course.
And then, and what about the school systems? Because, have we gotten this information to the educational system?
Not yet. The book has only been out for a month and a half.
And what kind of feedback are you getting though when you go around and talk about this? I'm assuming you're doing lectures around the country.
Yeah, well, I always bring my peer-reviewed articus.
Okay.
Because my thesis, which is the same as my title, The First Americans Were Africans, is backed up by 7, soon to be 8 peer-reviewed journal articles, which is the height of academia.
Wow. And so you've got credibility. People can see this research. What do you think? Do you think this is going to change history at all?
Well, for hundreds of years in Europe, people thought that the world was flat, and it took a while for them to be able to say the world was round in order to go out there and navigate and see that it was indeed round. So it's going to take a little while for them to get around this, but it will happen.
And so what part of Africa were the Africans from who came to Brazil?
Well, the DNA, the Genome Project found that the earliest ones, the ones that they found in Tierra del Fuego, in the very tip of South America in 1874, 1876, were the short Africans, the Khoisan, who spoke with clicks like that. The gods must be crazy that a movie on
Yeah,
that.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yes. So they have
About the Coca-Cola bottle that fell in. Yeah.
Yes. They have the oldest DNA and the oldest language on the planet, and they were all over.
Oh, wow.
All over all three Americas, as well as Asia.
Well, have they done any DNA tests in Brazil to see that?
Yes, they have. The Genome Project went all around the world. There are 100,000 people participated.
Wow.
Taking DNA swabs.
And so first we know that it's possible to get over here by canoe. And second of all, the DNA from that group of Africans is in Brazil.
The most important thing, not to forget to ask me, well, I will tell you that, where do the Native Americans come from? Well, we've always been taught that they came across the Bering Straits from Asia. This is true, but they did not come until 3000 BC. There is no evidence of them coming before 3000 BC. So for 53,000 years, there were nothing but Africans in North, Central, and South America.
Wow.
When they come over 3000 BC, those two groups, the Africans and the Mongolians, get together, the Asians, get together, and their children are the Native Americans.
Wow.
This is why the Native Americans do not look Chinese. They are a little different than Chinese.
Right. Oh, that's, you know what, I mean, we need to learn. It makes a lot of sense,
Yes.
Dr. Imhotep, and we need to learn our history.
All right. So that's an excerpt of that interview. And I interviewed Dr. David Imhotep, I think about 13 times on the African History Network show. Okay, so as I said in the beginning, there's a concerted effort to suppress the teaching of certain types of history in school. History of slavery, civil rights movement, different aspects of African American history, etc. And this is part of Project 2025 to attack diversity, equity, and inclusion, to dismantle the Department of Education. Chapter 18 deals with dismantling the Department of Education. I've actually been on some panels recently talking about Project 2025.
Did you know that the Washington Monument is based upon an ancient African structure called a tekken that comes from the mythology of Asar, Arset, and Heru, who the Greeks called Osiris, Isis, and Horus? Did you know that the panther deity Bast in the movie Black Panther and Wakanda Forever comes from an ancient African deity, a neter in ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, called Bastet? Did you know that there were 17 pyramids found buried underneath Egypt around 2011? Also, the city of Memphis, Tennessee. What's the relationship between Memphis, Tennessee and Memphis in ancient Egypt? I'm historian and national political commentator Michael Imhotep. Be sure to register for my new 12-week online history course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Kemet is one of the original names for Egypt. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Did you know that the word Wakanda is a real word? We find it in the Key Congo language, which is a Bantu language, but we also find it in the Omaha Ponca and Sioux Indian Native American languages. My class starts up Saturday, March 1st, 2025, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is a 12-week online history course. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. We do with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. When we talk about the transatlantic slave trade, we can't start our studying of the history in 1619 in Hampton, Virginia, or in Jamestown. We can't start in 1441 with the transatlantic slave trade starting with the Portuguese. We have to deal with thousands of years of history that leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We'll deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, who take the teachings from the Nile Valley region of Africa into Europe, and this is what brings Europe out of the Dark Ages. We'll talk about ancient African empires, whether we deal with ancient Nubia, whether we deal with Kush, Kemet, Mali, Songhai, Ghana. This is a 12-week online history course. We deal with 80 to 100 articles. There are 200 slides that I show you in the class. There are video clips. There are 15 books that we reference. You don't have to buy any of the books to follow along in class. It's a very visual class, so we show you all that information right on the screen. The class is PG-13 as well, so you can use this with your children. Download my lesson plan from my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Register right now. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll see you in class. Peace.
Support the African History Network, $ the AHN show, through Cash App, through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. Here's our QR code for Cash App right here, the bottom of the screen. The information is also on our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the online classes that I teach. We do the classes live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. So you can go back and watch it anytime. You don't have to join us live in the class. And then you can download you can order my DVD lectures and digital downloads of my presentations as well. So that all will help you and help us as well. Yeah, we know African American History Month is coming up also. Follow us. Now I just shut down I just deactivated my TikTok account because I ain't doing TikTok. I don't know if I'll go back to it. I'm not sure. But I have downloaded Fanbase, so I'm setting up Fanbase also. Everybody download Fanbase, set that up. That's an African American owned and operated social media platform owned by Isaac Hayes III. Okay, so you can support us here. Register for the online classes I teach Saturdays, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Register right here for it. You can do a debit card, credit card, or PayPal. Download our class lesson plan here. We have our Cash App right here, $ the AHN show. So if you type it into Cash App, type in the full tag, $ the AHN show, SHOW, because there's some fake ones out there, and they'll come up before you type in all of it. Okay. Ours, it will say Michael, and it may show my picture there. Okay. So we have a QR code here, and this shows it also right here, this graphic here. And then paypal.me/the AHN show through PayPal. And I know through PayPal, you can set it up for a recurring contribution if you want to. We definitely appreciate that as well. I can't remember if you can do that, set up for a recurring contribution through Cash App. Okay. All right. Look, we have to get out of here. Hopefully you learned a lot today, because this is a lot of work to put all this together. Hopefully you learned a lot today. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win.